We are privileged to have our very own Seshadri Chari sir, who is a part of a JanyuTech team as a mentor advisor. Apart from that, a brief introduction of Chariji. Chari sir is an author, strategist, and foreign policy analyst. He is the Secretary General of Forum for Integrated National Security, that is FINS, and member of Governing Council Research and Information System, that is RIS. He is also on the team of many universities of University of Mumbai, University of Pune, and University of Goa, as well as he is heading a Department of Geopolitical Science in Manipal Institute of Technology. It is, I think, third or fourth time the sir is delivering this lecture in this session, and we are very much privileged to have you, sir, here. Over to you. Yes, thank you so much.
And it's very cold here actually. The last night, the temperature had dipped to 3.9 degrees centigrade. So now slowly it is recovering and it is almost 7 degrees now. But tonight it will again go back to maybe 3 degrees centigrade. So you can imagine how cold it is in this part of the country. So in Haryana, what happens is when it is very, very cold and people sleep outside in that baranda type, which has a door, which is open from the top, but it has a door. Now, all the male members of the family, about 4, 5, 6, 7 male members, they sleep outside. And then someone goes out for some meeting or some film or something. He comes back. When he comes back at night, 12 o'clock or 1 o'clock, he knocks the door. Now, everybody, all the 5 or 6 or 7 people who are sleeping, they all know that somebody has come and somebody is knocking, but nobody will utter a word. Whoever says "Kaun hai," he has to go and open the door. That is why that saying is "Jo bole so kunda kole." So last week, fortnight when I was there, so we were discussing this issue that there are going to be elections all around the world. So that time I had listed about 54 countries, but now there are more countries have emerged. Some reports say that it is almost 70 countries. There is a NGO in USA which tracks all elections all over the world, and that NGO has suggested that there are more than 72 countries which will be facing elections, not only democratic countries, but slightly non-democratic also. Like, for example, Russia will also face elections this time, and Putin will go for election. In all likelihood, he will be re-elected. There is a humor in Russia that a thief entered Moscow government secretariat, and he was caught. So he was punished for 1 year in jail for stealing, and 9 years in jail for revealing state secret, because that box contained election result of 2030. So they say this is how elections are held in Russia, they say. But even then they hold elections. Russian parliament is called Duma. So they do hold elections for Russian parliament also this time. So all these elections, say 54 or 55 or 60 or 70 or whatever number we have, we should take a broader outlook of how these elections are being held, in what circumstances and what is the background. The most important background is, of course, we know Russia-Ukraine conflict is going on, and in the Middle East, Israel-Hamas conflict is going on. And very recently, a new flashpoint has emerged in Red Sea, where a sort of quote-unquote terror outfit called Houthis. These Houthis are basically, it's an organization based in Yemen, and they are very close to Iran, and they are actually it is a Shia group. They owe allegiance to Shia faith. Again, Iran is also a Shia country, as against the Sunni countries of the Arab world. So Yemen is actually in a position where it's a meeting point between Asia, West Asia and Iran, and it is at the opening of Red Sea. On one end of Red Sea is Yemen, on the other end of Red Sea is Suez Canal. So this is the kind of strategic location that Yemen is, and that is where this organization called Houthis are there, and they have supported Hamas. Again, Hamas also is bordering on Shia faith. So again supported by Iran. So there is in Lebanon there is another organization called Hezbollah. They are also supported by Iran. So 3 Shia outfits which are more or less supported by Iran openly and to a very large extent, and who are based in 3 different locations. One is in Gaza, one is in Yemen, and one is in Lebanon. So these 3 organizations are avowedly anti-Israel. Now, the whole situation in West Asia, in Middle East, what we call Middle East, has changed. There was a time when all these Arab countries, including Egypt, fought a war with Israel, a well-known 7-day war, in which the entire Arab world of more than, say, about 30 countries were against one small country. But they all lost and Israel won. After that, a number of things have happened. Egypt has patched up with Israel to a very, very large extent. Lebanon does not want an open war with Israel. And US is supporting Israel. Not only that, the most important thing that has happened is there is a rapprochement between Saudi Arabia and Israel also. It's a very major thing that has happened in the Middle East. And very recently, one more very important thing has happened. That is, China has brokered some sort of a peace talk between Saudi Arabia and Iran. Now remember two very important things here. Saudi Arabia is the citadel of Islam, the Arabized version of Islam. Saudi Arabia propagates Islam and it propagates an Arabized version of Islam. Islam is very different in very many countries. Every country has its own version of Islam. But more or less, Saudi Arabia controls Islam all over the world, and it is propagating a particular kind of Islam which is very peculiar to Saudi Arabia, which we call quote unquote Arabic Islam or Arabized Islam. So this kind of Arabized Islam, which is based on Sunni faith, has two more aspects. But what happens is in this kind of a situation, a Sunni Arab country which is avowedly anti-Israel, anti-Iran, is joining hands with both Israel and Iran, while both Israel and Iran are sworn enemies of each other. So it is like that, again, that old adage which says that a monkey got into a toddy tree and it drank toddy, and then there was a scorpion in the tree which stung the monkey. So what they call in Marathi, Adi Chamarkata. As it is a monkey, it is unstable. Over and above it had drank toddy, and then it was stung by a scorpion. As if these three things are not enough, it went mad. So you can imagine the kind of confusion that would have created. You can now imagine what kind of complex situation we are facing in our extended neighborhood, that is Middle East. So we are now talking of elections in 70 countries in a situation where this kind of a complex situation has emerged in one place. In our neighborhood, there are countries which have gone bankrupt because of their own foreign policy and economic policy. We know about Sri Lanka, we know about Pakistan, we know about Nepal, we know about Bangladesh, which is struggling. And on the other hand, a change in government in Maldives has created a huge diplomatic problem for India. The Maldives president has now recently visited China. He has signed 20 agreements with China, and he has asked India to withdraw the army. So in this kind of a situation, we are seeing a huge amount of complexities all over the world. Now in this situation, we should now look at the elections and our own foreign policy. Elections actually should not in a way affect foreign policy, because India has always been saying that as far as elections are concerned, foreign policy is concerned, it does not change with the government. More or less, the foreign policy remains the same as far as the governments are concerned. But in this case, when we look at foreign policy from a very different perspective, it has two aspects. Foreign policy has got two aspects. One is the domestic aspect and another is the international aspect. As far as the domestic aspect is concerned, the only aspect as foreign policy, as far as domestic aspect is concerned, is that a foreign policy should be made in such a manner, the formulation should be such that our domestic, strategic and security interests are guaranteed. National interest is guaranteed. Foreign policy's main plank, the template of foreign policy, is protection of national interest. So that is one thing that will never change. It's not that the government changes and they take a decision which is against our national interest. It has never happened. It will never happen, whichever government comes. Secondly, India is in a different situation now. 20 years back, 30 years back, from 70s onwards, our foreign policy has moved in two different directions. One is the soft power policy and one is the hard power policy. In 71, we exhibited our hard power policy also as far as Bangladesh is concerned. We liberated Bangladesh and broke the back of Pakistan and nailed once and for all the whole theory of two-nation theory. So we killed it, we finished it, we buried it once and for all. And Pakistan was broken. And a new nation, Bangladesh, was created that helped India in a very, very large manner. Instead of having enemies on both sides, east and west, now we have got a country which is inimical to India's national interest only in the west. And as far as the east is concerned, we have a country which is fairly friendly with us. And Bangladesh also has recently had an election, and Sheikh Hasina, who has come as the Prime Minister for the fourth consecutive term, there are no opposition. Only opposition party was BNP, which boycotted the election. And now she is firm in the saddle. Of course, she will have to find an alternative to her because she is almost nearing 80. So she has to one day or the other hand over the baton to some other person of her choice. The party will have to survive another election, and so many other things are there. But Bangladesh also follows a domestic and foreign policy which is in the interest of India, and we see to it that a friendly government exists there so that they are very friendly with us. But that is not the situation as far as Pakistan is concerned. We had a very big trouble with Pakistan. We continue to have the trouble with Pakistan. Bangladesh, Sri Lanka also, we had trouble in between with the change of government, but fairly we have been able to contain the situation. In Nepal, we had a very serious problem when Maoists came to power. Initially, they were a terror group and they had a running battle with the then monarch of Nepal, and then democracy was settled. In fact, 1950, India participated in the internal issues, and India helped democracy survive in Nepal in 1950. Since then, there has been a lot of problems, but in 1996 onwards, there were a lot of problems to 2006, and then 20 parties came together, and they have now formed a government, and we had a Marxist government, Maowadi government, what they call, which tried to move closer to China. So now we have been able to contain that policy also to a very, very large extent. And on a similar basis, the Maldives issue has come up. But I don't think it will be a very major problem as far as India is concerned. We will be able to surmount that problem also. So this is as far as neighborhood is concerned. So if you look at the elections from a very different perspective, there are about 9 points which we should take into account. Now, these elections are happening. If you take the strata of these elections, how are they taking out? First is, as I said now, immediate neighborhood. There are elections in our immediate neighborhood. That is Bangladesh, Pakistan, Sri Lanka, Nepal. Bhutan also had elections last week, and the party which was in the opposition has now become the ruling party, and the other party which was in the ruling party at that time negotiated with China and wanted to settle the border issue. Now we have to see how the present government acts now. We have told Bhutan repeatedly that they cannot do or have any agreement with China which will impinge the security of India. So they have agreed to this, and they have respect and regard for India to a very, very large extent. We have contributed very much to their economy. So this is how we have treated. But now a change of government, we will have to see how the government changes the policies. So in the immediate neighborhood, we have got these elections which are going to have an impact on our relationship with those countries, and also we will have to recalibrate our foreign policy as per the changes that have taken place in those countries. That is number one. Second is elections in our distant neighborhood. So distant neighborhood also has many factors. There are many countries in the distant neighborhood where there are going to be elections, and this distant neighborhood has another factor which we should know, which we should not forget. India's distant neighborhood has two areas are influenced by the distant neighborhood. One is the Indian Ocean Rim Association region, what we call. So that starts from the eastern coast of Africa, which touches the Arabian Sea, touches that part of it, and to the western coast of Arabian Sea. So there are more than almost 75 countries in this whole region. Almost 50 countries of Africa come under this particular region. That is the Indian Ocean Rim Association, we call. As of now, there are only about 9 or 10 members, but we can have more members. The Indian Ocean Rim Association is its headquarters is in Mauritius. So we are actively working with that organization. We were the president of Indian Ocean Rim Association once upon a time, and we have made new members also. So elections in immediate neighborhood, elections in distant neighborhood, and elections in extended neighborhood. So these 3 factors we should remember when we talk of election. The third is, if you look at in India's region. Now there are countries, as I said earlier also, USA does not have a region at all. but India as a region. India falls under a particular region. You call it Asian region, or you call it Indo-Pacific region, or you call it Indian Ocean region. We have a region, and there are more than 55 countries in this region, and some of these countries are again going for election. So regional dynamics will change. Like Maldives government changed, and then the regional dynamics change. Similarly, Sri Lankan elections may take place, the regional dynamics can change. So the region is one area where we have to see how elections take place and which kind of government comes and how to deal with those. Again, there are elections which are going to happen in stronger nations. When we say stronger nations, superpower and strong power are two different concepts. So strong powers, for example, nowadays we use another term for strong power. We also say middle power. Now Russia is, once upon a time, Russia was considered to be an upcoming superpower. There was a conflict between Russia and US during the Cold War, and both countries were at par with each other, competing with each other to become the superpower. But today Russia is a middle power, strong power but middle power. So the position that Russia held at that time has now been taken over by China, but I'll come to China much later. So there are stronger nations which are economically stable, not unstable like Pakistan, which are economically stable. For example, Iran, we can say, is a very strong country. Turkey is a very strong country. Israel is a very strong country. Israel is not a superpower, by the way. So I'm not talking about superpower. There are strong powers, middle powers. So these countries are also going for election. Then there are countries which we call as strategic partners. So these strategic partners are very important for us. For example, Greece is a strategic partner for us. Argentina is a strategic partner for us. Egypt is a very strategic partner for us. Egyptian president came to India also. Saudi Arabia is a strategic partner for us. Iran is a strategic partner for us. So some of these countries which are strategic partners, there are elections going to take place in those countries also. So we have to segregate them and look at their domestic changes. Then there are continental powers. We have so many continents. Australia is a continent. And then there are elections going to be held in Australia. There will be elections held in Japan. There will be elections held in South Africa. And then there are elections going to be held in Europe. There are elections going to be held in South America. So these continents and these areas will also hold elections. So we have to see how those elections are going to impact our foreign policy. Then there are elections in countries which are our trade partners and trade institutions. For example, BRICS countries. Now, BRICS country means, I think, India, Russia, Egypt, and South Africa. There will be elections in these 4 countries. BRICS has got 5 countries. China is there, but China doesn't hold elections at all. Where elections are very different. But of course, China also impacts. But China, there is not going to be any election in 2024. But then now BRICS has expanded. So in the expanded BRICS, Iran is also there, and there could be elections in Iran, which means BRICS as a bloc. Elections will be held in BRICS as a bloc. South Asia blocs are there. So, for example, ASEAN, SAARC, Indian Ocean Rim Association, IPSA, India, Brazil, South Africa. So these are all blocs. So there are countries which are part of these blocs. Like BRICS, there are countries which are part of BRICS. ASEAN, there are countries which are part of ASEAN. So there will be election in these countries, and these countries again are going to deal with institutions like ASEAN and BRICS. How their relationship will change is what we have to see. For example, if BRICS countries, let us say South Africa, Brazil, India, China, Russia, Iran, all these countries are very important as far as BRICS is concerned. And if these countries, there is a change in government, and these countries as members of BRICS decide, let us say, on 2 things. One, let us have a BRICS currency, and let us think in terms of de-dollarization. So BRICS as a unit will be represented by countries where elections will take place, a new government will come, and that new government may probably force BRICS to go for de-dollarization. So we will come to the economic aspects a little later. So that is why we have to take into account this also. Again, there are countries which are very powerful as a bloc. For example, US is not part of a bloc, but US itself is a very important country, and US is important also from the point of view of Quad. US is the prime member as far as Quad is concerned. Quad has 4 countries, US, Japan, Australia, India. So a change in dispensation in US will have tremendous impact on not only India but all over the world. Recently, last week, Trump spoke in one of the speeches. He said, during my presidency, that is Trump's presidency, he said, America did not fight even a single war. Now imagine if there is a constituency which in America which says we don't want war, pull out of all wars, if that constituency is very powerful. So let us say Trump gets elected. What happens? Immediately, they will withdraw support to Ukraine. They may even tell you, Israel, that you don't go for peace talks. Don't enter into any war. And they will tell Yemen that you control your Houthis, but we don't want to attack. What happens? Will trade improve? Will wars end? But then what happens to Ukraine's interest? What happens to Iran's interest? What happens to Israel's interest? Will Israel allow such a situation? Will Israel then listen to Trump? And if Israel does not listen to Trump, and if Ukraine does not listen to Trump, what punishment can he give to Israel and Ukraine? All these things will have a very great effect. So US election is going to be very important as far as world geopolitics is concerned, world geoeconomics is concerned. So we have to look into that separately. It's a very separate subject. We cannot bring that subject into any other subject in a way. So if 50% of European Union also thinks in those terms, and they say we don't want migrants, we don't want anybody from outside, then what happens? There is going to be a huge impact on this whole issue of migrants, and they creating problems in the countries of their adoption, and where they have been given asylum, they will be creating problems. So this could be a very major change in Europe if Europe goes this way. So we will have to watch that also. And then more importantly, US, EU, UK is also going to go for elections. And now we have a prime minister who is very India friendly, who is the son-in-law of an Indian tycoon. But we don't know. He may or may not continue. The Labour Party may not continue. The Conservatives may come. If the Conservative comes, what policy they will have is to be seen. And then we are also entering into an FTA with the UK. If the FTA is signed before the elections, then it sticks. Otherwise, if the FTA is not signed during the present government term, then what happens is the new government which comes may put in new terminologies, new usages. They will put new conditions. They may withdraw some existing conditions. So many things can happen. So how will it impact India-UK trade is also to be seen. Similarly, West Asia, Indo-Pacific, South-South cooperation countries. So we have to segregate all these countries, and we have got our own Indo-Pacific policy. We have got our own South cooperation policy. We have got our own Middle East policy. So how these elections are going to impact these regions is also to be seen. And then more importantly, there are going to be elections in Taiwan also. Now Taiwan, as we know, is a very, very big flashpoint. There are two parties there. I think the Democratic Progressive Party, DPP, is there, the present ruling party. And Kuomintang Party is what is called the KMT, is in the opposition. Now, the present government is strongly anti-China, but it does not mean that KMT is not anti-China. KMT's belief so far is that we should not antagonize China, but we should not become subservient to China also. So, if KMT comes to power, they will sort of soften their attitude towards China. Which means what? Which means the US, they may not require the US support. They will tell the US, you please keep out. As far as China is concerned, we are not going to become part of China, but we are only going to tell Chinese that, look, keep our independence. We will be independent country. You are independent, and don't talk about merger and all these things, but let us do trade. Then what happens to semiconductor business in the world? Today, most of the semiconductor business is going out of Taiwan out of fear that there could be a war. Suppose this fear of war comes down. And if China says, we are prepared to deal with Taiwan, whatever merger is there, we will look at it some other time. But what is important is business. Now what happens? Will the semiconductor business go back to China? Will China again become very powerful in the semiconductor business? That is again something to be seen and studied. Now, for example, we may have elections in Russia. As I said earlier, in all likelihood, Putin is going to come. But suppose something happens, and then there is a opposition group which topples Putin. What happens? It is not that Putin has not been challenged. He has faced challenges. There have been challenges, and he has been able to overcome challenges. But suppose if the army proposes another general, after all, don't forget that Putin was also in charge of KGB. He was KGB chief who came to politics and became the president of Russia. Will Putin change? Or if Putin thinks that his authority is being undermined, will he withdraw from Ukraine? Will he soften the stand? Will he start doing more business with European Union straight? Because European Union is also wanting to do business with Russia. So these changes can take place. So we are looking at a global situation where elections are going to happen, and these elections are basically domestic affairs. Most of these elections will be fought on domestic issues like price rise, issues like economy, issues like dealing with neighborhood. All these issues will come in. Taxation, increasing fuel prices, all these things will come. International issues may not affect domestic elections, but the party which comes to power in these countries will largely depend and largely affect what we call the international situation. So India will have to look at all these elections in two manners. One, country-wise, country-specific election in Russia, election in Algeria, election in Tunisia, election in Jordan, and election in Uruguay, election in Venezuela, election in Austria, election in Poland, election in a small country called Togo. All these elections will have to be seen individually. We have to see how these elections, what changes are taking place in that particular country. Usually what happens is we have got embassy in every country, and our ambassadors are there. So these ambassadors, Indian ambassadors and Indian setup in these countries, they prepare what they call the country report and status report. So they send a lot of reports and everything. They will say that this party is very strong, that party is very strong, this man is very strong, but the party may not win. There can be a coalition government in this country, or there could be a single party government in this country. All these things they keep and they send it to us. In Ministry of Foreign Affairs, MEA, there are desks, we call desk. So there is East Asia desk, West Asia desk, US desk, West East desk, West desk, UK, USA, all these desks they call. So sometimes some 4 or 5 countries are put together, what we call PI desk, Pakistan, Iran, Afghanistan desk. So like this, these countries are put in different desks, different groups. So these reports come and then they are analyzed and they are given to foreign minister and foreign secretary, and then they talk with the prime minister, and then we evolve a situation, we evolve some sort of a policy. So individually these countries, 50, 60, 70 countries, whichever number it is there, we have to take care of each and every country separately. Then we have to take care of each and every country from the group within which they fall. If they are in the BRICS group, they are in a South Asia group, they are in G20 group. So we have to see these groups separately. And third will be, we have to see these from our relationship point of view, our relations with how that country's relation is with China, whether that country's relation with China will affect us or whether that country's relation with China will improve our situation. This is what we have to see. Now there are countries which have got BRI projects, and BRI projects have become a huge problem in many of those countries. It's becoming a debt trap. So a new government may come and say that, look, they may tell China that we don't want BRI projects, so take away your project. We don't want your money, nothing. Then does it give an opportunity to India to get into those places? That is what we have to see. There are European Union countries which are actually not happy with BRI projects. Like Italy has given up on BRI project. They've cancelled all the contracts as far as BRI is concerned. Sri Lanka is rethinking. Africa, Nigeria is rethinking. So there are so many other countries like this. So we have to keep a watch on those things also. And then we have to frame a policy which will help India, Africa. There is an organization within the MEA called Asia Africa Growth Corridor, which is also supported by Japan. So maybe we have to invest more. We have to invest more in African countries. So this kind of policy changes, policy recalibrations, and all we will have to do. So elections in their own domestic elections are going to be fought on domestic issues. That country will decide who will be the prime minister, who will be the member, who will do what. All those things will happen. But that will have a great impact on India's foreign policy. So that is why this subject of elections in 70 countries or 50 countries or 60 countries is very important for us, not only from the point of view of India's security, but also from the economic point of view. So we have to be very careful. We should know what kind of business we are doing with which country, and what are the products that we are buying from them, what are the products that we are selling them, how will they deal with China, how will they deal with USA, how will they deal with Russia, and how will they deal with India. So we cannot always have a country dispensation or a minister or a government in all the 70 countries which will be always friendly with China. We cannot have. But how to deal with those countries is what is very important, and secure our security, take care of our strategy, and also improve our economy. These three things we should be able to do. So this is the whole idea of just introducing this subject for all of us to think about. And most of you are very knowledgeable in as far as business is concerned. You are very knowledgeable as far as security is concerned, and some of you must have even visited some of these countries. So all of us, we can have some sort of an input and discussion on these subjects and increase the benefit to all of us. I just introduced the subject. I am not an expert on geopolitics. I am not an expert on any of these subjects, and I am not in politics as of now. But still, I thought it would be an important subject for all of us to discuss. So I end here, and I will, we can have discussion. Thank you.
Good evening, Chariji. Harish Pathak here.
Oh, Harishji, namaskar.
Namaskar. I wanted to ask you, Iran and Turkey, I've been hearing a lot, and I do some reading to understand, and appears that they are pretty good, decently placed powers. Economically, technologically also they have advanced, and military might also. I have no idea absolutely. For last 10 years, I have not heard anything about Brazil, and it is also part of BRICS. So what is Brazil's position on all these three fronts? As I said, economically, technologically, and military. Where are they?
Okay. Yeah, that's a very important question. Iran, of course, the only fear as far as Iran is concerned is they have a nuclear program. And any nuclear program which has about 20% enrichment stage can actually shift their focus, nuclear focus, from peaceful purposes to military purposes. So 20% is enough, whereas Iran has got 80% enrichment. So 80% enrichment, the moment you go beyond 50, your intentions are very clear. Nobody will go beyond 50 only to electrify the house. That means Iran has got certain projects which are going to be fast roll the nuclear program for defense purposes. If that happens, that is going to change the regional outlook to a very, very large extent. So that is one thing that we have to see. Similarly, Turkey. Turkey has now become a very important country, and a little bit of going back to radicalization. So under Kemal Pasha, whatever Turkey was, is today's Turkey is no longer a kind of secular Turkey under Kemal Pasha. It has become a very different kind of a country. So we have to look into that also, how these things will change. Now again, Iran and Turkey are again part of another grouping called the Axis countries. Now China is now creating an axis. China, Turkey, Iran axis. China, Afghanistan, Iran axis. And China, Pakistan, Afghanistan axis. So if this axis, they keep on working on this. Similarly, Russia is also doing the same thing. Russia, Turkey axis, Russia, Turkey, Iran axis is also going on. So if all these things happen, these groupings will again impact the regional politics as well as geopolitical situation. As far as BRICS is concerned, BRICS is a very strong economy. BRICS is one of those foremost emerging economies of the world. Now, the BRICS economy is strong in terms of its business, it's very strong in terms of its service providing. And as far as technology is concerned, of course, South Africa, Israel, Iran, and Turkey are on par with each other. BRICS is also equally strong, but BRICS is not a very powerful technological country, and also their military technology is not very strong, but their economic fundamentals are gaining ground and becoming very strong. So now what happens is, if they don't concentrate on their military power and they concentrate only on the economic power, then Brazil's economy becomes a very important decision maker as far as de-dollarization issue is concerned. Now, Brazil is one country which has been playing very good defensive politics with both China and India. Brazil is very close to India. Brazil is also very close to China. China wanted Brazil to sort of play a leading role in BRICS. And there is another organization called IPSA, which I mentioned: India, Brazil, South Africa. Now, India was the presidency, India had G20 presidency. India has handed over the G presidency to Brazil. Now, Brazil is the president of G20. And from Brazil, it will go to South Africa. So, for the next 3 years, IPSA countries will hold G20 presidency. So, it becomes very important for India to deal with both Brazil and South Africa. Now, if Brazil somehow or the other distances itself from some of the foreign policy ideas of India and moves closer to Russia or China, it can create problems for us. So it's very important for us to deal with Brazil in a proper manner and keep them as close as possible to our national interest and the interest of the region and the interest of the BRICS also, because BRICS has been expanded and Brazil has been in the forefront of expanding BRICS, and it will be a very difficult situation if BRICS expands to such an extent that expansion itself becomes unwieldy and uncontrollable. So that way, Brazil plays an important role, no doubt about it. Thank you.